3:42 a.m. Every night for the past week, I've woken up at exactly 3:42 a.m. Not approximately, not around that time, precisely 3:42. According to my phone, my digital alarm clock, and the watch I've started keeping beside my bed to confirm I'm not imagining things. It started last Tuesday. I'd gone to bed at my usual time, around 11:30, after scrolling through social media for too long as usual. Nothing unusual about the day. Work had been busy but manageable, dinner was leftover pasta, and I'd called my mom like I do every week. Normal life stuff. I jolted awake with that unmistakable feeling of something being wrong. You know that sensation, when your body recognizes danger before your conscious mind catches up. My heart was already racing when I opened my eyes to my pitch-dark bedroom. 3:42 a.m. I lay perfectly still, listening. My one-bedroom apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing on the street below. After a few minutes of nothing, I convinced myself it was just one of those random wake-ups everyone experiences. Probably stress from the project deadline coming up. I rolled over and eventually fell back asleep. The next night, I made sure to avoid caffeine after 4 p.m. I even skipped my usual evening scroll session, opting to read a book instead, supposedly better for sleep. I drifted off easily around 11, and woke up at 3:42 a.m. This time, the feeling was stronger. Not just wrongness, but a distinct sensation of not being alone. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat as I stared into the darkness, eyes straining to make out shapes beyond my bedroom door, which I always leave slightly ajar because fully closing it makes the room too stuffy. Nothing moved in the darkness. No sound besides my own breathing, which I was trying desperately to keep steady and quiet. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight, sweeping it around the room and then through the doorway into my small living room. Empty. Of course it was empty. The third night was when I started to get genuinely scared. Despite taking a melatonin and falling into a deep sleep, my eyes snapped open at, you guessed it, 3:42 a.m. This time I was drenched in sweat, my t-shirt sticking to my chest. More disturbing was the fact that I was sitting upright in bed, with no memory of having done so. I knew I hadn't been dreaming. The transition from sleep to complete alertness had been instant, like a switch had been flipped. And now I was fully awake, my skin prickling with goosebumps despite the sweat. That's when I noticed the smell. Just the faintest trace of something burning, not like food or an electrical fire, but like hair or fingernails. It was subtle enough that I questioned whether I was imagining it. I got out of bed that night and checked every outlet, unplugged non-essential electronics, even felt the walls for unusual warmth. Nothing. The smell had already dissipated, if it had ever been there at all. I messaged my friend Mia the next day, trying to sound casual. Hey, random question. Have you ever had a period where you woke up at exactly the same time every night? She replied quickly. Like when my son was a newborn and I had to feed him at 2 a.m.? Laugh emoji. No, more like without an obvious reason. I keep waking up at 3:42 on the dot and it's creeping me out. Probably stress. Or maybe your upstairs neighbor has a weird schedule? Our bodies are sensitive to patterns. That made sense. The guy above me did sometimes work nights. Maybe he was coming home or taking a shower at that time. I felt better having a potential explanation. Until night 4, when I woke at 3:42 a.m. to the distinct sound of footsteps in my living room. Light, careful steps. The kind someone makes when they're trying not to be heard. I lay frozen in bed, not breathing. My phone clutched in my hand with 911 pre-dialed. The footsteps stopped. Then came a soft scraping sound, like furniture being carefully moved. I've never considered myself particularly brave, but something about the calculated nature of those movements filled me with more anger than fear. This was my apartment. If someone had broken in, they had violated the one place I was supposed to feel safe. I turned on my bedside lamp, grabbed the baseball bat I'd put there the day before, I'm not stupid, and walked to my bedroom doorway. The living room was empty. The front door was still chained from the inside. All windows locked. Nothing appeared disturbed. I checked the entire apartment. closets, behind the shower curtain, under the bed. I even looked in the fridge and cabinets, though logically I knew no adult could fit there. Nothing. That's when I noticed my couch had moved about 2 inches from where it normally sat. I didn't sleep again that night. In the morning light, I convinced myself I must have bumped the couch earlier while vacuuming and not noticed. The footsteps must have been from upstairs, or a dream that had merged with waking. I was starting to question my sanity, so I decided to be methodical. That evening, I took photos of every room in my apartment, paying special attention to the exact placement of furniture. I set up my laptop to record video of the living room all night. And I took a sleeping pill, hoping to sleep through whatever 3:42 a.m. had in store. It didn't work. My eyes opened at 3:42 a.m., feeling like they'd been pried apart. The sleeping pill left me groggy, my limbs heavy, but my mind was alert to the absolute silence of my apartment. No footsteps tonight, just the absence of the normal sounds. No refrigerator hum, no heating system, not even street noise. I felt like I was in a vacuum. The silence so complete it seemed to have physical presence pressing against my eardrums. Then my bedroom door slowly swung shut. I hadn't touched it. There wasn't a draft. It moved with deliberate slowness until it clicked closed. I couldn't move, the sleeping pill weighing my body down while my mind screamed to get up. The doorknob began to turn, rotating gradually, the internal mechanism making a faint clicking sound. Using every ounce of willpower, I broke through the pharmaceutical paralysis and lunged for my phone, turning on the flashlight just as the door began to open again. The light revealed nothing on the other side. The door continued to open until it touched the wall, revealing my empty living room. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, sitting upright with every light on, the baseball bat across my lap. In the morning, I checked my laptop recording with shaking hands. At 3:42 a.m., the video showed static for exactly 1 minute before resuming normal recording of my undisturbed living room. I called out of work and spent the day researching carbon monoxide poisoning, temporal lobe seizures, and sleep disorders. Anything that could explain what was happening. I even called my landlord to ask if previous tenants had ever reported strange occurrences. He just laughed and said, "Like what, ghosts? The building's only 15 years old, not exactly haunted mansion material." I bought a carbon monoxide detector. Normal. I checked all the locks again. Secure. I even asked my neighbor if he'd heard anything strange. He hadn't. Last night, I was determined to break the pattern. I went to stay at Mia's place, not telling her the full story, just saying my heating was acting up. I slept on her couch, her husband and 5-year-old son asleep down the hall, finding comfort in the presence of other humans. I woke up at 3:42 a.m. The living room was dark except for the glow of the cable box. Unlike at my apartment, I didn't feel afraid here. Just confused and increasingly frustrated at my broken brain or circadian rhythm or whatever was causing this. Then I heard a small voice. "Who are you talking to?" Mia's son stood in the hallway entrance, clutching a stuffed dinosaur, his eyes reflecting the dim light. "I'm not talking to anyone, buddy," I whispered. "Just woke up for a minute. You should go back to bed." He tilted his head, looking not at me, but at the empty space next to the couch. "But you were talking to the tall man." Every hair on my body stood on end. "What tall man?" I asked, my mouth dry. He pointed to the empty corner. "The one who followed you here. He's bending down to whisper in your ear." I felt it then, the faintest breath against my ear, carrying that same burnt smell from before. I'm writing this from my car, outside a 24-hour diner where I've been since 4 a.m. Mia thinks I got an early start to drive to my parents' house a few hours away. She doesn't know I have no intention of going there and putting them at risk. It's 3:41 p.m. now. In 12 hours, it'll be 3:41 a.m. And a minute after that, I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if I'm experiencing some kind of mental break or if there's actually something following me. All I know is that child saw something I couldn't. And children don't make up very specific details like tall men whispering in people's ears. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch in a week. I'm writing this because I need someone, anyone, to know what's happening. In case tonight is different. In case tonight, at 3:42 a.m., I find out what it wants. Because the most terrifying possibility isn't that I'm losing my mind. It's that I'm perfectly sane and something impossible has taken an interest in me. And it's patient enough to claim just 1 minute of every night until it's ready for more. And that was 3:42 a.m. by Technical Ad 9713. It's a interesting designation there. So, what I really like about this story, 3:42 a.m., it's got such great logic, right? This protagonist, main character, whatever you want to call them, they go through this crazy cycle of basically a ritual routine sort of changes whatever their sleeping cycle is, and they're always waking up at 3:42 a.m. They don't know what's going on, right? And there's not exactly noise. There's nothing really out of the ordinary, except for the fact that, yeah, yet again, there's the strange silence compared to like typical white noise, background noise that you might hear of electrical humming of, say, a refrigerator, things like that. There's just nothing. There's nothingness to it, and yet he keeps waking up every time at 3:42 a.m., which is always a weird one. If it's going to be like so specifically precise on the dot, like I mean, we've all had times where we wake up randomly in the night. You know what I mean? Or I guess for some people in the day. And, it's sometimes it's like, it's just because you have to go pee, or maybe there's a certain noise. And yeah, it might be like roughly around, say, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., or whatever, but it's never precisely. It's never precisely a time every single time, right? So obviously that's the weird occurrence here. And then it begins the investigation, the ruling out of things. For example, with the carbon monoxide, is there some kind of an issue with that? Is there maybe a weird ritual that my neighbor does, and that surprisingly wakes me up at this specific time every single day? Maybe it's, I try melatonin. Let's try not having caffeine after 4 p.m. They're ruling out all these other things. So I love the fact that it's not just immediately like, oh my God, my place is haunted. No. They do their absolute best to just rule everything else out. And I love that. I love that because, yet again, it reminds you of how you see many horror movies, shows, books, whatever, where characters just kind of, they don't do that. They do the dumb stuff, right? We all know it. And it's never great. It's entertaining. But, you find yourself frustrated and you yell at the screen and stuff, right? And I feel that. I'm sure we've all done it. I know I certainly have quite a number of times, especially watching things like, Evil Dead, Friday the 13th, Final Destination, just to name a few. And I think it's great. And then the problem is there's nothing obvious, so they end up doing pictures to make sure. It looked like the couch moved. Let me take some pictures of a before and after kind of sequence. See if it happens again. Let me do a recording of the living room. See if I can catch anything. The thing that I was confused about, though, was the fact that they dismissed the fact that for an entire minute of the laptop video recording, so everything clearly worked, except for when it hit 3:42 a.m. and then for an entire minute it was just static, and they just kind of, it just felt like that was played off, like it was, I guess there was a problem. You had no other issues except for that. Like, you think if anything that's kind of solidifying in your mind that something's up with this time, right? And I suppose then, for me, I would be like, okay, well, what else could I test, right? Which, I suppose that's just me. But it's not like their logic was bad when it came to trying to figure out what the problem was. Of course not, no. We clearly just had different ideas at that regard. I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was a crazy cool story. I think I like the fact that, he ended up staying at Mia's place, coworker, and, the kid was like the crux in this, the fact that they saw this tall figure, the thing that has been haunting this person, and they didn't even know it. It was a great little reveal, a great little moment. Yet again, another fantastic example of how children or animals even can see things that we can't. I think it's great. I think it's really great. I don't know how that works all the time in logic for me, because I'm like, well, why can kids see it but then adults can't? But at the same time, then it defaults to me thinking of like, well, it's also like with sound, right? Kids can hear higher pitches than we can, and over the years, like we kind of lose a level of that, which kind of sucks. But I suppose maybe there's a little bit of logic when it comes to that as well. When it comes to the realm of the dead, I'm not sure, because you think then wouldn't they also hear that stuff, even though we can't? I don't know. Confusing. Too much thought. Clearly, it's hard to define all that shit. It's not like it's all set in stone, right? No, I really enjoyed the story. I'm really curious as to what happened. Clearly, they are followed, I suppose. I don't feel like possessed is the right word. Followed, I would say, is more the right word, because obviously the fact they ended up at a different house and it still happened, yeah, I suppose followed is the more appropriate word. By, it could be a ghost. I feel like it's a more malevolent entity, though. It does feel like it's a little bit more intense, and maybe slowly over time they're gaining power. They're figuring out what they can do, and I guess inevitably they're either going to kill this person or take them over, will be my guess. That's usually what I would think, right? That's like the two worst things that can happen to a person with a entity or spirit, right? Is either possession or death. Yeah. No, I super enjoyed it. I thought this was a great story. I'm really glad I got to read it. I sure hope you guys did too. I thought it was awesome. Let me know down in the comments below what you think this entity is. You know, is there a specific type that you can think of? Is there maybe a certain malevolent spirit, for example, or a yokai or something? I'm really curious what your thoughts are. I really wouldn't know. I really wouldn't know. It does make me think of like a Babadook, even though it doesn't sound like they look like one. You know, but I would say they have the general mannerisms of a Babadook, even though I don't. Besides the movie, I've never heard of a Babadook. Is that an actual thing in established like lore? I have no idea. It always makes me laugh. There's a Babadook. I think it's or the What We Do in the Shadows version. It's like the Babbledygook or something. I love that. I love that shit. It's very funny. As for movies and shows and stuff, this makes me think of, I'd say the first one that comes to mind, and probably really the only one, sadly, that comes closest, I would say, is Paranormal Activity. Simply because it's not a full on belief that there's paranormal activity going on, but then they do inevitably set up like in-home security cameras and everything and capture activity that happens during certain times of the night. Yeah, that's kind of the only one really that pops off that feels the most similar. I mean, I did think of things like The Haunting, which it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of more the belief of like, you know, it's not exactly a ghost type situation going on, and it's other things, and there's like they're doing like a sleep study, for example. I think it was like an insomnia study, if I remember right. But yeah, there ends up being like a paranormal activity. And the only other one maybe would be Insidious, which yet again it's the belief that they don't think it's paranormal activity going on, right? A ghost or whatever. But their son goes into a comatose state, if I remember correctly. And throughout a period of things that kind of happen, basically, it's not a ghost. It's I suppose it's more like demonic entities. I think there's more than one, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. It's a great movie. Great movies, to be honest. But they don't quite reach the same similarities as Paranormal Activity, I would say. It's just because, yet again, that they do deal with the fact that they don't immediately jump to the conclusion of it's ghosts, you know, and they do a base level investigation, but it's not quite the same. It's more, I guess, any kind of ghost hunting show, really, or even YouTube series would probably be. Maybe, but again, they're more trying to find evidence of ghosts. It's tricky. It's really tricky. Yeah. Yet again, it's just off the top of my head. I feel like if I really got to sit down and grind through some stuff, I feel like I could probably find far better examples, but I did not. So, just being honest. Yeah. So this has been 3:42 a.m. I've really enjoyed it, and I sure hope you have too. This has been Nate at Night, and we will see you for whatever's next. Take care out there. Shout out to these cool peeps: Jude, Tracy Dooling, Zayden, and Fiend Nix. You too can become a cool peep for $1 a month and get these member shoutouts and also 2 weeks exclusive early access to my future upcoming videos through either YouTube, Patreon, or when my merch store is live, Fourth Wall. You can also show your support by tipping through either Super Chats, Super Thanks, both on YouTube, or through my streamlabs.com URL, which will be in the description of future videos below. Cheers for now, guys.